In this video...
Alrighty, campers, we're here in Molino.
It's 11 o'clock at night, we're at Sheets, and that's my car in a tow truck.
Welcome back to the SAS Railfan YouTube channel, where today we are chasing 2102, oh yeah baby! And for this trip, everyone is here. We got Kian, aka SAS Railfan. We also got the one and only Ryan. Next we got Zach, aka Modern Line Studios. And lastly, the man, the myth, the legend, Jack. We started out in Leesport, where already we encountered some foamer shenanigans. Hello. Since most of the stories in this trip weren't caught on film very well, the real life SAS is here to regale you on some of the stories that happened. So we arrived in Leesport, and I pull in next to this house, this red house that was for sale on this little gravel patch, and then me, Zach, and Ryan go set up by this curve, and Jack goes to the other side of the crossing to film from there. So then this SUV pulls up and pulls into this little gravel path across the tracks from us that hadn't been plowed yet, so it still had a lot of snow on it. It seemed like it was two railfans and their dad who was driving, and so the two railfans get out and set up behind me and Zach and Ryan, and the dad tries turning around the car, but he ends up getting stuck, which I actually have footage of. So we're just standing there watching this SUV spin its wheels, and while that's happening, a different SUV pulls in down the road from where my car is, and two railfans start walking toward us. And as they're coming, we hear 2102's whistle off in the distance, so we know it's coming. One of the railfans that parked in the SUV and started walking towards us comes up to our little group by the side of the curve and asks us, like,
"Hey, whose car is this green Mazda?"
And I reply, "Oh, that's my car." And he says,
"Oh, can you move it? I want to film with the house."
And I say, "No, man, it's coming. I'm good."
"No, just like move your car over there."
"Nah, I'm good." And so these guys leave in a huff and puff just because I wouldn't move my car. Regardless, here's the shot we got at Leesport and my first time seeing 2102. And with that, cue the chase music. We booked it over to Hamburg, PA to get a shot from under this overpass. My favorite part about this shot is how the steam hits the ceiling of the overpass. And, in something that became a theme of this trip, I managed to get multiple shots of 2102 that I'm sure nobody has gotten before. Anyway, for the next shot, I'll let Ryan tell you where we went.
Alrighty, campers, we're here in Molino. Kian didn't want to listen to me, nor did Zach, and so they're stuck over there.
I listened.
Eventually, I did listen to Ryan, and I went over to the dirt hill they were standing on, and this was the shot that I got that totally isn't backlit to all heck. If you look really closely, you can see Mr. Studios getting swarmed by foamers. We then booked it over to Hecla, going at very safe and responsible speeds on the Pennsylvania backroads. Don't worry, Pennsylvania law enforcement, I was very safe and responsible and careful while driving and never broke any laws the whole day. Also ignore the fact that I'm looking up the statute of limitations in Pennsylvania. 2 years? Also ignore the fact that I'm standing on the tracks for this nose shot. After I was done being stupid, I scrambled away from the tracks to get one of my favorite shots of the day. I'm pretty confident to say that I'm the only person in the world who has gotten this specific shot. Then we once again drove very safely over to East Mahanoy Junction to get an overhead shot. This bridge interestingly has an open grid deck, so the steam from the engine went right through the deck and onto us. You can actually see the ash raining down on us as it came back down. Also, look at those foamers, running for a train. How so stupid, I would never run for a train. Next, we beat it over to Lincoln Drive where the road was actually closed, but that's not gonna stop me. I set up to get another overhead shot, this time from right above the train looking right down the barrel.
then beat it around to Industrial Road where I got another head-on shot of the T1 coming straight at me for a whole mile. Something really interesting about this shot is if we rewind back to when you can see the whistle smoke coming out of the engine and when you hear it, you can see a massive difference between when you can see the smoke and when you can hear the noise because of how slow sound travels. Hey, you should probably go check those Discord notifications. Anyway, here's the shot of 2102 on a direct crash course with me and my lungs. We planned to not even try to go to Jim Thorpe because we were worried that we'd get stuck in traffic out there, so we headed out to Whitehaven for lunch. But on our way we got stuck behind 2 cops blocking the road to stop pacers, and the excursion ended up passing us, which I got a little bit of footage of. Our lunch spot of choice was Tavern on the Trail, where we all got some lunch, and then it was over to Woods Ice Cream for some milkshakes and ice cream. And then it was back to Industrial Drive to start our southbound chase. When we got there, Mr. Studios wanted to get the head-on shot that he missed on our first time out here because he was busy filming a low shot of the crossing gate. He later told me that he was standing there taking that low shot thinking, damn, I should have gotten the shot that I was getting. So Mr. Studios walked 500 feet down the tracks to film the reverse head-on shot whilst I was walking down towards a pool created by the snow melt accumulating in a little channel. Although, to Zach's credit, he got the engine in better lighting and it was going up grade, so it was chugging a lot harder. We had over 2 hours to kill, so I got very bored and started dancing. And I even took whatever the hell this video is.
Yo, I'm just up here 21ing my O2. my O2. I'm 21ing my O2.
No comment.
Eventually, we heard the whistle from a distance and we were on. I bent down to my little creek bed and captured another one of my favorite shots from the day. As the train goes by, you can actually see the water start to ripple from the vibrations of the train.
And since we had so much time to prepare, I set up my phone to get this specific kind of shot. Also, since Mr. Studios went so far down the tracks, he had to run through the little ditch to get back to my car so we could go to the next spot, which looked like this.
As we were driving to the next spot, we ended up at the right place at the right time because we got to pace 2102 for a short amount of time. Thank you to Ryan for filming this. We then barely beat the excursion up to Marion Ave.
And before I show you this clip, this was the best shot of the day. They were going uphill. This was the hardest they cranked the engine all day. It was so loud you couldn't even hear the horn. I positioned myself really close to the tracks at first, and then the more it was coming towards me, I could hear it get louder and louder and louder, and I scooched over a little bit. You can actually see this in my friend's video. And I was so close to the train that while I was getting this low shot, the vibrations from the engine actually shook my lens. So if you look in specific places over, like around the shot, you can see like the lens like distorting, or like the frame distorting a little bit, just from like the power of the engine so close to me. And also from my friend's video, you can see in the clip how close I am to the engine.
We then had a short 3-minute hop down to Barnesville where I got a shot of 2102 on a bridge, which is something that I've been wanting to get all day. Next, it was down to New Ringgold to get one of the few urban shots of the day. Next, it was over to Dxrk for a massive curve shot where I used my superior height advantage to film over this guy here. Thanks to me being 6'1", here is the shot that I got at Dxrk. Then it was down to Port Clinton to end our chase.
But don't go anywhere, because once we leave Port Clinton and start heading home, that's when the story gets really good. Or if you're one of us, really stressing, annoying, and tiring.
But anyway, I headed over to the turntable to catch 2102, pulling onto the table and stopping, and then I drifted back towards Broad Street to catch the 2 RBMN GP38s, pulling the train the rest of the way. I went back over to capture some more 2102 B-roll, but I was immediately cut off by the RDCs following the train. And then it was back over to the turntable for a third time to film more B-roll and talk to some very nice people. And I even did a few interviews.
SAS, and I'm here with
Z Photography.
How was the chase today?
Yo, this was tough, man. Put on a great show out here, meeting all these cool people, amazing friends, you feel me? Like, yo, this is some tough stuff, you feel me? Yeah.
All right. See you later, man.
See you later, man.
Happy trails.
You as well, man.
I'm also here with
Jersey Railfan Production.
How was your chase today?
It was good. It wasn't easy. It never is, but we managed to succeed.
All right.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Peace.
All right. I am also here with
Austin.
What's your YouTube channel? If you have.
Smoking Hot Media.
All right. How was the chase today?
Chase is great. Got a lot of good shots. Engine was working hard. Good whistle. Did everything. It was
All right.
great.
Good luck to you, man.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
This was an insane day of chasing, and even better was that we didn't miss a single spot. Every single video was incredibly peak, and not a single one missed or dropped the ball. I'm still struggling to comprehend how perfect this day was. Eventually they put 2102 into the roundhouse and we headed back to Altoona.
Or did we? Because once we left Port Clinton, our night was about to get a lot longer than a 3-hour drive home. Which makes sense, because with my luck, if I have a perfect rail fanning day where no shot misses and the whole day is peak, then after that I have to have some sort of fallout where a bunch of horrible stuff happens to make up for my perfect rail fanning day. So as we were driving home, we had just gone through Harrisburg, and all of a sudden my car's dashboard lights up with warning lights, and my car starts shaking a lot, and I'm like losing power. We're going up a very slight hill, and like my car's like losing speed as I'm going up the slight hill on the highway. So we get off at the first exit, and like my car's like shaking this whole time, which is really nerve-wracking. And so I'm barely able to pull it into this random person's driveway. The house lights weren't even on, and like my car is still shaking even when idling. So I click my car off, and so me, Jack, Zach, and Ryan are all like frantically like Googling things, calling people, our parents, tow truck companies, repair shops, to see if anybody's open or kind of what our options were, because my car clearly can't get us back to Altoona, and we need something to either fix it or tow it and put it somewhere, and we need all to get back to Altoona. So after a lot of calls, after a lot of Googling, and after a lot of time, like this is cutting out a very significant portion. The time at this point is around like 7:30 to 8 going into 9, like we're still Googling and calling people past 9, which is when some mechanics closed and others were already closed by 5. So with limited options, Zach brings up the idea that he has AAA. And I go, "You didn't mention that earlier?" Which, honestly, to his credit, he didn't think he could use it. He thought it went with his own car. And as much as I joke that he only remembered it an hour into us sitting there, I can't make fun of him because his AAA is what got us home. So eventually the tow truck shows up an hour after we called them, and my car goes on the back of it. It's like 11:30, and the tow truck driver says, "Okay, I can drop you off at the Sheets so you can have somewhere warm to stay while I take your car to my shop," which we couldn't go to because it was closed, and we couldn't stay there. And so he drops off. First off, we all crowd in the back of this tow truck. We're all like squished. So this is literally how I was sitting, because we have to have 4 people into the backseat of one tow truck. And so we get dropped off at the Sheets, and somehow at midnight, an Uber driver agrees to take us from Harrisburg to Altoona. So at the Sheets, I get some food, other people get some snacks, and this Uber driver shows up, and we all pile in, and it takes us all the way back to Altoona. So we get back to Altoona. So I live in an off-campus house. So I asked the Uber driver, hey, would you mind dropping me off at this house over here? And thankfully she agreed. And so she drives over, drops me off. I grab all my stuff, get in the house, and I go to text my parents that I'm home safe because they knew what was happening. And here's a dramatic reenactment of what happens. So that's the face of a man who realized that he left his phone in the Uber driver's car. So I have no way of contacting Jack, who ordered the Uber driver. And so with very little options, I throw on my boots, I don't even tie them, and I start running back to campus from my off-campus house. So as I'm running, my chest starts to feel this like pressury, stinging feeling, which I know from previous experiences is a collapsed lung. I've had 8 collapsed lungs in my past, and I know the feeling pretty well. So I get back to the dorm, and obviously they're very confused that I just showed up panting and out of breath. So I turned to Jack, and I asked him, like, hey, I left my phone in the Uber driver, can you tell them to turn around? So thankfully the Uber driver turns around, she gives me back my phone, and Jack was nice enough to take me back to my house. And so going back to the pain in my chest, on the right side, I was kind of feeling it, it felt a little bit better. It was kind of like a pressure in my chest that kind of stung, and then I went to bed, and the next morning it felt a little better. I went to work and I took some pain meds, and it like the pain had gone down all day, and by Monday afternoon I was feeling basically no pain. But just with my history of collapsed lungs, I decided to go into the ER to get an x-ray just to make sure it wasn't anything. And I go in, get an x-ray, and they say I have a collapsed lung. But when you have too many collapsed lungs on one side, there's an operation that you can do called a blebectomy, where they basically cut off the top of your lung and staple it shut. And so I've had 2 blebectomies on my right side, so even with a fully healed lung, my lung will look like it has a collapsed lung just because so much of it had gotten taken off. So eventually doctors come in and say, hey, we can't give you a chest tube here, we only do chest tubes for emergencies, so we're going to transfer you to Pittsburgh. And I'm like, what? So yeah, the next morning, this is what I get to see. And if you look really closely, you can see the best mother in the entire world. So within 5 hours of my mom learning that I had a collapsed lung, she was already packed and ready to go to do this 7-hour-long drive all the way to Altoona just so she could be with me for my collapsed lung. And then she drives the extra 2 hours out to Pittsburgh, so that's a total of 9 hours of driving in a single day. If that's not the best mom on earth, I don't know what is. Thank you so much, Mom. So to keep the very long story short, I get the chest tube on Tuesday, and then on Friday I get an operation called a pleurodesis, where they basically inject an antibiotic up into my chest tube, into my lung cavity, to irritate my lungs so much that it creates an armor of scar tissue. And so before the operation, the doctors, who sugarcoat everything, were saying, oh yeah, this is going to be excruciating. I've had something like this operation before, and that was the worst pain of my life. And so going into this, I kind of knew the pain that I should expect, but oh my god, this topped that original pain from the blood patch, which is an operation where they inject blood into you. So basically what it felt like, to keep it kind of high level, first I tense up really hard, and you know the feeling when you breathe all the way out or all the way in, when you try and go farther, you kind of hit that wall where you can't breathe in or out anymore? Well, that's what I felt like. I felt like I had breathed all the way in, so I can't breathe in anymore, but what it felt like was I also had a wall on the other side, so I couldn't breathe out. Like I literally couldn't breathe. And it's kind of hard to explain, but I was like trying to breathe out and I wouldn't breathe out. I was trying to breathe in, I legitimately could not breathe. The only way that I could circulate oxygen was basically taking a sharp breath in and kind of pretending that I blow air up my nose. Literally, to recreate it, it would be...
So while doing the IRL voiceover, I somehow managed to forget the most painful part about that whole operation, where the whole right side of my chest was covered in this extremely painful, like almost cramping feeling. It felt like someone had taken a cramp and cranked it up past 11, like way more painful than a normal cramp would be. And then it also felt like they had taken poison and poured it all over the top of my lung. There was like a stinging aspect to it, and also it felt like someone was pinching my lung on all sides. There was like this physical pain aspect to it as well. And so like, all that pain was combining on top of the shortness of breath and on top of the tensing up, and like all of that was like that was the entirety of the pain. And I was sitting here editing. I was like, oh my god, I cannot believe I forgot to mention the stinging pain, because like that was 90% of the pain. So I just wanted to add this in. I'll go back to the IRL voiceover now.
And I'm doing that for 2 hours before the pain starts to slowly go away. And that whole process was the most painful thing I've ever done in my life so far. But eventually I got discharged from the hospital, went all the way back to Altoona, and I'm fine now. And I only missed like a week of school for a train. It's fine.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was an amazing trip, and I'm definitely going to do this again. Just maybe not driving again. Thanks to Ryan for planning and navigation and a little filming. Thank you to Zach for driving me to the hospital. Thank you to Jack for driving me home. And thanks to Real Life SAS for the reenactments and storytelling. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go get a follow-up X-ray, which is actually a true statement this time. Thank you for watching and have an action-packed day.